course of the past few years, members of the Olympic Project have studied what's known as the nest area. Located deep in the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State, their research into the nest area has led to a diverse array of different types of evidence. This evidence points to a biological ape that lives in the Pacific Northwest. And with so much of the evidence being similar to the other great apes, it raises the question of what other parallels can be drawn between the Sasquatch and its potential cousins.
So looking at the Sasquatch phenomenon as a whole, there's obviously similarities with to humans, but so many similarities to non-human primates like gorillas, chimpanzees, and definitely orangutans.
The orangutan model, basically a male will have a territory, and within that territory there'll be several females that have their own territory, but it's smaller. And he just kind of works his territory around and visits each female. And usually the female will have their offspring with them. And that kind of is the model we've applied to the Sasquatch. And honestly, my audio, what I've recorded in the nest area kind of supports that. It fits nicely. It's a good model for that.
I mean, there's so many comparisons and parallels with orangutans. Some of the things we've heard in person and recorded are long howls. They're usually in vast areas like the Olympics. You don't tend to hear them in smaller little wooded areas, with not a whole lot of terrain, or near a lot of humans. You hear these long howls usually in remote areas. And I look at the orangutan kind of model for that, where you get these solitary males, and the alpha males, the larger orangutans with the big phalanges, they'll do a long howl in one direction, and what it's announcing is that it's going that direction, and it's telling the males, look out, but it's telling the females to be, hey, get ready, I'm coming to get you.
In my recording experience in the Northwest, we don't get a lot of long howls. I've recorded one really good long howl in X1, and I recorded there for about 5 years. I've recorded one good long howl during the 2-year nest area project. I've recorded several up here on the Opry property, but it's not something that happens very often. For my experience, there might be others that are recording more, but I record a lot, and if it was happening a lot, I record a lot in a lot of different areas around Washington. If it was a thing they're doing all the time, I would expect to get a lot more. So I think it's done for a specific reason, and I think it has something to do with the males announcing themselves to possible females and rivals.
Absolute ton of Sasquatch reports talk about cinnamon colored or reddish colored. And I think there'd be more, except a lot of the sightings are at nighttime from a distance, and so you wouldn't be able to differentiate if it was black or brown or red. And then under a microscope, when you're looking at some of this suspect hair, if you look, other than lacking a medulla, the centerpiece of the hair, a lot of it has red pigmentation underneath a microscope, red granules, and I think that's fascinating. And you also get the fact that orangutans are generally solitary individuals. Sasquatch, I tend to believe that they travel in more than 1, 2, 3, sometimes maybe family units, who knows? Some of the recordings we have, Chris has labeled them, chimp fit, because it sounds like chimps. And then visually looking at some of the whoops and stuff, match chimpanzees, and then some of the grunts recorded in the huffs kind of match gorillas.
Most of the vocals are whoops, or just one-off primate-like vocals. And it's usually 2 or 3 individuals that I've recorded. But on 2 occasions, one occasion in 2021, I had at least 5 different individuals vocalizing. In 2022, we had another night like that. So I hypothesized, for whatever reason, one night a year, at one period in time, another individual or several individuals came into the area. But during the rest of the time of year, there's only 2 or 3 in there on a regular basis. So that kind of fits that model of maybe the nest area is a site where there's a female and she has 2 juveniles or young ones with her, and then every 6 to 8 months a male comes into town and he might have a couple younger males with him or what have you, and makes his presence known. That's a hypothesis, because they could, I mean, what are my recorders not picking up 1.5 miles, 2 miles away? You don't know. But the model fits nicely. And, you know, if it fits, go with it for right now. It's not set in stone. Everything I tell you is subject to change in the future. Absolutely subject to change. I'm not married to any one idea.
Orangutans are the only gray ape to not live in large social groups. Adult female orangutans typically have a home range of 3.5 square miles, while males have a home range of 15. If the Sasquatch is real and displays similar home range behavior to orangutans, it could be reasoned that they would have a larger home range due to their greater overall size. This would also mean that there aren't very many, even in a large patch of woods, leading some in the Olympic project to speculate that the population numbers for Sasquatch are very low.
I really don't think there is a lot of Sasquatch, and I don't think there needs to be. You look at certain populations of great apes, they live in small pockets relatively well and survive and thrive and have a great genetic pool. I think if there were a lot of Sasquatch, they would have been discovered. You know, I don't know their age. That's always been a question of mine. How long do they live? You know, you can look at some known animals. I think generally speaking, they probably live anywhere from 40 to 60 years, maybe longer. But if you have a small number, I mean, look at the nests, for example. I don't think nests are being made all the time. I think they're periodic. They're made for a purpose. And as I've stated time and time again, they're almost always found by somebody in the timber company, a timber cruiser, a surveyor, because they have a job to do. They have to get way off trail and go in these nasty areas and mark timber that's going to be logged. And every once in a while, these nests are discovered, and they have been found throughout history. These aren't the first nests to be discovered. In fact, they've been found in places like California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, British Columbia, Idaho, Montana. They have been found, but not all the time and very rarely. And I think that speaks to probably these nests are made for a birthing scenario, which I do believe. A nursery, so to speak, and it's kind of the perfect storm. They find spots where they can hunker down in complete privacy, have birth, but have nutrients like all, you know, huckleberry, salalberry, blueberry, wild strawberry, all these different berries. And then you have the salmon, and then you have the deer, you have the rabbits, the raccoons, the possums, and then all the other plants in the area. Besides huckleberry leaves, you have moss and skunk cabbage and devil's club. You have this perfect storm. If Sasquatch is anything like an orangutan, which basically gives birth every 4 to 8 years, if they're anything like that model, then Sasquatch is not giving birth every year, and it's every 4 to 8 years. And that means there's not gonna be a tremendous number of these things. The PNW does not have good tamales.
Raven's back.
Do you remember the first time you ever heard about Bigfoot?
Yeah, I don't remember how old I was, but it was when In Search of came out with Leonard Nimoy, and we watched it with my parents in the 70s, and it had the Patterson-Gimlin film in it. And I remember my dad saying, "That's a guy in a suit." But that was the first time I became aware of it, and I was probably 6 or 7. It was shortly after that that me and my dad found the tracks in Packwood, which I've told that story a number of times.
Have you?
Yeah.
In this one?
Well, do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So like I said, I don't know exactly how old I was. It was in the late 70s. My parents had a cabin in Packwood, Washington. It was springtime. We were out cutting wood for the cabin, and there was a fresh clear cut where you could see down the valley and you could see Packwood, the town, and Dad wanted to take pictures of it. And he parked, and I noticed there was tracks along the side of the road, and when I was a kid I was really into tracks, animal tracks and stuff, and it had been not long after seeing the In Search of show. Well, I get out and I walk over to these tracks, and they're walking up the side of the road, and it was like a combination of slush and mud because there were still some little patches of snow up there. And the track that I sat over, I don't remember exact details, but it was a bare foot and it was really big. And I told Dad, Bigfoot. And my dad comes over, and I'm, a little kid squatted down on the ground, and I'm pointing at the track, and Dad's like, oh, it's probably just a hunter's track. And I'm like, if it is, Dad, he doesn't have shoes on. And my dad, I just turned at that point and I look at my dad, and this is what I really remember, his eyes just bugging out of his head. And he goes, get in the truck. And we left.
Wow.
And actually, a couple years ago, Dad's 80 now. He asked me, he goes, do you remember those tracks we found? I'm like, yeah, I remember those tracks we found. He goes, you think those were Bigfoot? I said, I do now.
So you didn't believe in Bigfoot?
No, I've always been interested in it, but I was like, my dad always was really skeptical. But when I had Grover Krantz as my teacher in college, that's when I was convinced that it was a real animal. Up to that point, I was interested, but I wasn't into it. I wasn't into it the way I would become.
Dr. Grover Krantz, while holding a teaching position at Washington State University, he was the first academically affiliated physical anthropologist to associate himself with the Sasquatch subject. In his career, he published 4 books on the topic, and was a major proponent of the theory that Sasquatch sightings were the result of an extant population of Gigantopithecus, the largest ape that ever lived. He is also considered one of the 4 horsemen of Sasquatchery, alongside researchers John Green, Rene DeHinden, and Peter Byrne. Wow, I didn't know you had Grover Krantz as a professor.
Oh yeah.
I feel like you've told me that, but I didn't. I couldn't have.
Come on, get with the times, man. I've told everybody that story.
I know. Dang.
But
sorry.
Yeah, what was cool about that though was that I was blown away. I didn't know that he had anything to do with Bigfoot, and after he devoted 1 lecture a semester to the subject, and I just had him for Anthropology 101, and I went in and he had all the tracks out, and he did a lecture on it. He had a copy of the Patterson-Gimlin film. I got to see it on an actual projector. When I left that class, it's like, Dad's wrong. That's a real animal. He explained exactly why that was an animal, and what blew me away was the fact that here you had an actual scientist talking about it, and I never knew that there was actual scientists even interested in the subject. I mean, to me, you hear about Bigfoot, you know about Bigfoot, you live up here, but it's kind of a semi-joke. And some people, you're like, well, maybe there's some to it, maybe there's not. But after that, I was just like, oh yeah, there's something really to this. So,
when was the first time you ever heard about Bigfoot?
When I was in Scotland, when I lived on a little island called Isla. Either a TV show, I'm sure it was a TV show. But then again, I mean, I was into Loch Ness Monster. So I heard about Loch Ness Monster, and then I kind of fell in love with cryptids in general. And then from there, you got the Yeti and all that stuff. My mom got me a couple of books on Sasquatch and cryptids in general. So it was in Scotland that I kind of became fascinated with the Sasquatch phenomena. That's when.
Did you ever think you would be looking for it?
Not when I was there in Scotland, no. I moved over here in '93, but not while I was in Scotland, no. That wasn't even on the radar.
Were you always a believer in Sasquatch?
No. I wasn't always a believer in Sasquatch, far from it. I always thought there's a possibility. You know, and I didn't become, I don't even like the word believer, and I don't even like the word knower. I mean, but I do. I know they exist. But it wasn't until 2011 when I actually had an experience and saw one of these things. I always, up until then, I was like 50-50. Even with the Patterson-Gimlin film, I always thought that was real, but I was like, hey, you just never know. So, yeah. So I get why there's a lot of skeptics out there, and you know, you need to see it to believe it, sort of thing. But yeah, I'm past that point now. I think a lot of us are past that point. We know they're real. It's just like, you know, how did they survive and thrive, and what do they do, and where do they go, and what makes them tick, and it's just learning about them now at this point. I mean, of course, I want to get more footage and all that, but just knowing that anytime, anywhere, they're out here somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Pretty dang cool.
What about you, Rebecca? When was the first time you heard about Bigfoot?
That's an interesting question, because I was out east, out in Pennsylvania.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah, I'm from western Pennsylvania. Yeah, my dad had mentioned a little bit about Bigfoot and a little bit about the Yeti. And so he grew up, he was born in 51, so he grew up hearing about all of that in that time period, and he thought it was all fake. He thought it was all, you know, but we, as kids, I think we gravitated more to the Yeti than we did anything about the Bigfoot.
Because
I don't know, I just think it was maybe because it was from another country. I don't know, when you're little kids, so we'd be camping and we'd be pretending we were Yetis running around trying to scare each other. I seem to remember him having some kind of book when we were really little. He mentioned Sasquatch and about how she would scoop kids up and put them in a basket, and that was the most I can remember about that. And then he mentioned that there were some sightings locally when he was younger, but he said, oh, those were just people on drugs. And so we just kind of wrote it off, and life went on, and then I learned more about Bigfoot. But,
how? When? You had a class with Grover Krantz.
Oh no, nothing that cool.
You started talking to your grandpa.
No.
Tom Slick.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I'm secretly a millionaire. Yeah. Sorry.
Or your quasi-uncle Peter Byrne.
What? It's Poopy!
Yes, if you listen to one of the most recent episodes of Bigfoot and Beyond, Cliff's show, one of the guests was calling scat that. So we were listening to that on the ride up here, and Chris just kept repeating it, and it's now part of his vocabulary. Thanks, Cliff.
As the night wore on, Chris began to position himself for the planned night operation. What are you doing, Chris?
So, I'm going to climb up in this tree, and I'm going to pull up all my thermals. I'm going to have thermals sticking behind me, in case anything comes up behind me. And then I'll be watching out here with another thermal in case something sneaks up around the camp. But my pack is full, and it doesn't fit in here, so I'm going to have to pull it up.
So you're just going to go up and set up the therms and come back down?
No, I'm going to sit up there.
Oh. What did you say?
I said, Eli, I know you're out here doing a production and whatnot. You got a job to do, but you're a friend, and we want to hear you play some freaking guitar. So drop the camera, pick up the guitar and strum. Thank you.
I don't strum, I pick.
He's a picker.
There's a difference.
There's plenty of pickers that come out here. They leave trash everywhere. So don't be a picker, be a strummer.
All right, fine. However, before the night came to a close, we were joined by the most important member of the team. Where's Shane Parker? Look who it is, Todd Hale.
That was a joy.
What?
What's up, brother man?
What's up, man?
Good to see you.
Yeah.
What's up?
Here, hold on. I guess I'll hug her too. You want a hug? He's like,
Why are you here?
I don't know. I was forced to come here. I was trying to stay home and relax. They just bugged me for 2 days to come over here.
Yeah.
Bugging me.
Todd.
So, yay, here I am.
Are you ready? It's time for the hailstorm.
Corona is the hub of the Inland Empire. The Inland Empire.
It's like inland, only different.
Inland?
Inland.
Is that like lanolin?
Tell me about how you used to cut down oak trees.
Cut down oak trees?
You used to move oak trees.
Yeah, I was a tree transplanter. I move trees for a living. It was epic.
Sorry. Oh, shit.
It's gonna end up viral.
Have you ever been to Corona?
I bet my tailgate in Corona picking up a part. Yeah, I've been to Corona. Corona sucks.
Corona's the hub of the Inland Empire. You realize that? Once you reach Corona, you can go north, you can keep going east, you can go south to Temecula.
Yeah,
Marietta.
Corona sucks.
Temecula, bro.
Temecula, bro.
Soon after Todd's arrival, both Rebecca and Shane headed out on different paths to use thermal imagers.
What we're doing out here, so we got Chris Spencer down here at base camp. He's up in the tree stand. And we had some success out here in the past where someone's at base camp, whether they're in a tree stand or just at base camp, and then an individual like myself would walk a couple hundred yards away and sit in the wood line. Now out here, you have to find a high point, even therm. That's what I do. I like to hike out a couple hundred yards from camp, kind of sit myself in the woods, listen, and therm. With the intention of attracting something either back to camp or whatnot. And what we usually do is we like to hike around all day, hike around all day long, just explore the woods. We're not big on night walks, doing all that stuff, you see on TV, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but we like to basically explore during the day, get in some areas we've not been in before, make ourselves known, and just see if we attract something back to camp. And it's paid off a few times, many times, nothing goes on. But we have Chris Spencer in the tree stand right now, but we don't always do that. What I love about the base camp is that's the point of attraction. You have a fire, you have people there, just like naturally, So what I like to do is peel away from that base camp and park myself somewhere that maybe if something's watching the base camp, it doesn't even realize that there's another party outside of that. And I think that's some of your best opportunities to get that thermal footage. And that's what I'm about.
As Shane disappeared into the darkness, back at camp, we played the role of unsuspecting campers. Oh, Chris, you're not down. They told me you were down.
No, I was just ready to come down.
Well, that's as far as I can go. That's where
You're pretty low to the ground.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's where I started. Now I'm warm again. I'm starting to get cold. My feet were freezing. That's the seat is insulated, so your butt stays pretty warm and your upper body stays warm. But your feet down here and your legs get cold. I left those 2 therms up there for the night. I got the one. It was perfect when you and when you and Shane, you guys are about 100 yards down that way. I could see you guys perfectly from about the waist, about this high up. I was able to zoom in on you. I'd say you're easily 100 yards, and I could tell the difference between who you were.
Really?
I'm really, really happy with these thermals. I recorded it. We'll see how it looks, because usually what you record is not the same quality as what you see with the thermals, but still, if there had been a Sasquatch down there, you would know it wasn't a person.
Yeah.
No, they're probably around just ignoring us, doing whatever they do.
So Chris, was Krantz a cool teacher?
Honestly, yeah, I was 19. He was a teacher, and
Yeah.
I grew up, you treat your teachers with a certain amount of respect, and he was Professor Krantz to me, and I wish I knew what if I knew half of what I know now. I wish I'd talked to him more, because when I actually went in and got his book signed, he was down in his lab, and I went in his lab, and I was nervous, and I just asked him if he would sign it. He's like, "Oh yeah, sure," and he's like, "You want me to write anything?" I'm like, "Whatever you want," and he just wrote down "Enjoy Grover Krantz," and then I asked if I could buy one of the prints, and he showed me his cast collection and the copies, and I bought the Dermal's cast. He talks about it in that book, Big Footprints, and that was about it. I didn't hang out. I was just like, "Thank you," and he's like, "Yeah, enjoy," and that was it.
He was just kind of a teacher to you.
Yeah, it wasn't like I didn't. I mean, now, man, there's a ton of things I'd love to talk to him about. But I'll tell you what, even when I talk to Meldrum now,
Yeah.
it's the same deal. He's like up on this pedestal, kind of, because it's like I'm supposed to listen to him. I'm not supposed to be telling him what to do. I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
It does. You snuck up on us,
I did. Very easily.
and I didn't even film it.
I know. I circumvented the camp. Like, it went around here, around the back. So easy. So easy. Because people are involved in conversation and noise, and they're completely not listening to what's going on around them. So easy. And I'm not a Sasquatch. I'm a human.
That's a lesson.
Dang right, it's a lesson. It's just funny how easily it is to walk on up a group of people or anything. So that was pretty interesting.
With Shane and Chris back at camp, we headed out to meet Rebecca, who was still out walking a road and therming the forest.
I'm glad you showed up, Hale.
Yeah?
I am. I'm really
I'm
glad.
not sure if I'm glad or not. Thanks. Great.
You're the star of the show.
She's at the top of the hill. I told her to come down to get the therm, and she sent me a map of where she was.
Right there.
I.e., bring me the therm.
I haven't even seen these thermals yet.
Here you go, Todd. You can use focus this to focus it for your eye. If you want to record something, the button closest to you records. It starts recording.
Right on. I'm gonna get the best footage known to man right now.
But unfortunately, Todd did not get the best footage known to man right then. But something happened that my camera did not pick up.
What's that? Are we hearing something?
There's a big crash down that way.
I didn't hear it.
Sorry for interrupting.
Where's Rebecca?
She's up the road. Don't run her over.
Have you seen her?
Yeah,
She's good?
I just turned her.
All right. Later, guys.
Take it easy.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're gonna run Rebecca over. I see her.
What did you guys hear?
So,
Find Rebecca. Just before Derek pulled out, I heard it sound like a tree crash.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went up and met Rebecca, and we traded thermals. And she's like, "Did you hear that down there?" And she heard the same thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be on the audio down.
that's basically what I was gonna say. I was up higher, so I felt like I heard it pretty clearly because you guys had already come up here and were talking. But he said possibly a tree fall. I wasn't quite sure. I thought maybe something was going on at camp. Something fell over or crashed over or something, because it was pretty loud.
Coming from the woods behind you there?
No, coming from, I thought it sounded like it was coming from down by camp, but it's throwing off my perspective because I'm up the road enough and there's been enough curves. I know camp's that way, so it could have been anywhere in between there, but I don't know.
When Derek left, huh?
Yeah.
What do you know? That's what happened when Shane left in
know.
April.
I know.
It's the same kind of pattern.
I know.
When someone leaves in a vehicle, something always happens down there. And we've got it on audio a few times. But it's always beyond sight. It's never right in front of you. It's always in the woods.
Crash, big branch break or tree crash. Trees comes down a lot around here. Notice the wind? Or lack of wind?
Oh, it's super windy, man. These trees are coming down.
Hi, Eli.
Hello?
You got totally out of focus because you're so close. This thermal is so much better than the one I was using. You guys actually look like people. The other one, you were just blobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm heading back down the hill. I'm sorry to make you guys come all the way up.
It's okay.
I am coming back Friday. I have to.
But I
I
could
just
hear.
keep thinking about that dang cat.
Well, no, that crossed
I don't
my
like
mind
it.
a few times.
I
That's
get
why I
irritated
was-
with Shane when Shane goes off and does that. I don't
Well,
like
that's
it when any of
why-
us go off by themselves.
That's why I either stand in the middle of the road or I like to get in a flat spot where there's nothing high for something to jump out
Right.
at me. And if something's gonna jump out at me, I have my back to the ravine because something has to run up at me. I don't know if that makes any sense. That's the logic I do out here, so I don't
I
get
just-
chicken shit.
I just think it's a good policy of at least two people together at all times.
Chris's primary concern here was for Rebecca's safety, especially knowing that there is a large mountain lion in this area.
There's a huge cougar we get on this road right here. We've got it on the camera at least twice. And one time it was the same day Chris either set the camera or walked by the camera, I forget. But it's on this road right here in this area. This is its territory. Yeah, there's a lot of big toms in here. But this one in particular has a cut off tail. We were calling it Stubby. I don't know what happened to its tail, but it's a big sucker. And here we are. No animals bother me in the woods except cats. Those suckers, they get big up here.
Are you scared of Bigfoot?
Not as much as I used to be. I used to be a lot more scared, but the last few years we've had a lot of different interactions with them, and I'm not nearly as afraid as I used to be. So these days, not so much.
When we returned to camp, I decided to dig deeper into my question. I found it important to ask if the members of the Olympic Project were afraid of Sasquatch, because any underlying fear of the very animal they are seeking would factor into how they search for it. But I also knew that no matter what the answer, their fascination of the subject still brought them out into the woods, far from civilization.
Are you scared of Bigfoot?
Yeah, I am actually. But I'm not scared enough not to try to go out and record it. I mean, I hear people talk all the time about, oh, if I see a Bigfoot, I'm going to do this or that. If I see a Bigfoot up close, I'm probably going to be scared out of my mind. I mean, can you imagine being like from me to you to a silverback gorilla that's pissed off?
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, exactly. And they're, for all intensive purposes, a lot bigger than a silverback gorilla. I forced myself back in 2015. Before me and my son had our experience in 2013, I used to go out camping and hunting by myself all the time, and never a thought, because, you know, I'm not afraid of a black bear. I'm a little afraid of cougars, but I'm not worried about those things. But you tell me, you know, once you have the realization that, wait a second, there's something like an 8-foot tall ape walking around the woods too, that's a totally different thing to think about. That's smart. That's like way more intelligent than the other animals in the woods. Then the things get a little creepy.
Right, but if they wanted to hurt you, they would have done so by now, right?
I don't know. I don't care what people say. It doesn't matter. It still makes me nervous. Anything of that size and intelligence makes me nervous.
What about you, Rebecca?
What?
Are you scared?
Of Bigfoot?
Yeah.
I find that it depends on what area I'm in. There's areas that we research in and I'm uncomfortable the whole time. I don't want to see them there, but we're there. I don't get scared in this area. It's weird. There's only been a couple times I got a little nervous, and it was just because we didn't know what was going on necessarily. But yeah, I think it's just they're large, they're intelligent, like Chris said, but I think they're also, you never know what they're gonna do. They can do whatever they want when they want, and they might not. They could be able to plan ahead, or maybe they just act in emotion, or, you know, like some wild animals, you can jump them and scare them, and, you know, they wouldn't have attacked you if they hadn't been scared. So it's just that the unpredictable, that's the word I was looking for, unpredictable aspect. Well, gives you a little bit of healthy fear, I think. But in general, I don't feel as much fear as I worked through from one encounter in a certain area. But I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't get scared here, which is kind of weird. They've never given me any reason to be scared here, I guess.
well, we had that one instance back last year in March where they got really close to us. That freaked me out, because why were they getting so close to us?
I know, but at the same time, I never felt that we were in danger.
Right.
I think you felt the weight of having to protect us. I think that hit you differently, but I didn't get any kind of, I hate saying even a feeling, but I didn't get that from it.
But the behavior's the behavior of an ambush predator, and that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Sneaking up as close as they can. What are they doing? Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe part of it was it was the hopefulness that they were getting used to us and getting comfortable, and because we were doing the same thing every time. And so maybe they were just trusting us a little bit. And then we went and just changed up the whole routine and threw it all off.
Caused confusion. And well, even after that instance, like we said, that instance might have happened
you know, multiple times, and we just didn't realize they were that close to us before. So
Hey, are you scared of Bigfoot?
Am I scared?
Yeah.
No.
Not of Sasquatch?
No. Do I have a healthy respect for Sasquatch? Sure. Am I afraid of bear? No. Do I respect bear? Yes. Am I afraid of mountain lions? No. Do I respect them? Yeah. So there's a healthy fear there, is what I'm saying. I don't fear Sasquatch or mountain lions or bear, but do I respect them? Hell yeah. They can kill you. You know? So no, I do not fear them. I wouldn't be up in a freaking tree stand in the middle of the woods. I wouldn't be out doing what we do if I feared stuff. So no, don't fear them. But I do respect them.
I just want a daytime sighting on my GoPro or film, not for the public, but for myself, and I haven't been able to get it. That's my only frustration. We've been around these things plenty of times, but getting one on film is difficult. And you know what the skeptics say, but we already know these things are real.
You know, as we've talked about before, I have a buddy who works for a zoo here in North America. The cool thing is that I learned a long time ago was that he had a buddy that went out to South Africa, or Africa. Where exactly, I don't know. But this individual went out there to basically film cross river gorillas. In his 10 years, or 8 to 10 years that he was out there, he got 8 seconds of footage of a cross river gorilla. We already know they exist, but to spend that amount of time out there, and they could find nests, and they could find scat, and they could kind of track them, but they could never set eyes on one of these cross river gorillas. In this one individual's career, he got 8 seconds, you know, of something they know exists. But that was it.
What kind of funding was behind the cross river gorilla?
Exactly. And that's a great point, Todd. No, exactly. That was a funded expedition. And we're talking, what, 10 years? So think about the
That's
money.
Like a full study.
Full study.
Yeah.
The amount of money went into filming them or whatever they were doing at that time. Well, guess what? Is Sasquatch, is what we're doing funded by science? Are scientists out there doing this now? No. Very few. Meldrum, Dr. Meldrum, and a few others are out there doing stuff like this, but they're not funded, and so they have a limited amount of time to get out there in the woods. Oh, and being in habitat like we're at. We're in a great area. We're in a fantastic area, and we have, I guess, better chances than most. But we're not funded, so it makes it very difficult. So, do I get frustrated? No, because first of all, Sasquatch has not been proven to exist. I know they exist, and I'm pretty dang sure they're small in number, very small in number. We just have to put ourselves out there. You have to be out there in the woods as much as one possibly can, and it's very difficult because, like all of us here, we have jobs, we have families, we have careers. Nobody right here is getting paid to do this, but this is our passion.
it's just having the time to do it and be out here consistently. That's why we did the audio project, because that could be consistently out here monitoring. And like I've said before, what I recorded in 2 years is what I expected from an animal that avoids us. You know, there's a presence here. They're not making a ton of noise because they're ambush predators, and that's what they do. They make a living being quiet, but when they do, it's for a purpose, and they are consistently making noise that I would expect from a primate living out here in the Northwest. It's just, we don't have we can't sit out here 24/7, you know, with our therms and our cameras. And that's what it takes. You got to be out in the woods. And most people can't do that.
Everybody wants to do the Jane Goodall approach, and I keep hearing this word. I mean, it's like a fad now. Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall was an amazing person and is an amazing person as to what she had done. But we can't do Jane Goodall because we're not funded. We can't have the time to be out here 24/7. And even if we did, I'm not promising any results. I'm saying that's what it's going to take.
You can spend years walking around in the woods and not find a thing or hear a thing or have a quote-unquote experience.
But if you want an experience, you want something to possibly happen, or you want to study this subject matter, you're not going to do it behind a keyboard or computer. You have to be out in the woods. And there's no guarantees. In this subject matter, I mean, Sasquatch aside, try studying any animal out there. It can be very difficult, especially in this environment, as Eli has witnessed. It's thick, it's brutal. We get a ton of rain up here. We ran into wasp nests. I mean, it's brutal. But we keep coming back. Why? Because we know there's something to this. And that's important, you know?
As the Olympic Project has demonstrated, the search for Sasquatch is difficult to say the least. Collecting evidence is not easy, and maintaining and reviewing captured footage and audio is time-consuming and often unrewarding. But I admire the Olympic Project for their dedication and their unrelenting efforts to obtain as much as they can, even if it does not come as quickly as some might hope.
This is definitely not a sprint. This research is definitely a marathon. And I can speak for myself and I can speak for the Olympic Project. We're ready to take on that marathon. You know, I think a lot of people get frustrated when they get into this. They expect immediate results. I'll be the one to prove it. I'll be a blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm sorry, it's just not how it works. I mean, maybe somebody will get lucky, but we're not necessarily out to prove something that we know is out there, the Sasquatch. That may happen through our work, who knows? Probably not. We're there to collect as much data as we can. And I know people claim that we've been at this for 50, 60 years. Well, who cares? To me, that's minuscule when studying something like this. Absolutely minuscule. We're building on the shoulders of giants. And by giants, I'm not talking about Sasquatch. I'm talking about your Robert Krantz's, your Rene DeHindens, your John Binnernagel's, John Meinzinski's, your Jeff Meldrum's. We're building upon their work. They laid the foundation. And now we're moving forward and standing on their shoulders and utilizing new methods, new ideas, coming up with different hypotheses. This research is in its infancy. So I'm always excited. I'm so non-pessimistic on the subject matter because we are getting results. We are finding things. We are testing our hypothesis. We're using newer equipment. We're trying new methods. And so I don't understand the frustration. We have the arrogance to say, we should get them on game camera. We should blah, blah, blah. No, not at all. Because our arrogance is part of the problem with this whole research. Because you place a game camera on a tree and you think you know where you don't know diddly squat about Sasquatch. Nobody really does. But you've got a moving needle in a haystack. So it's no surprise to me that we're not further along. But we're taking baby steps and we're doing that marathon and not a sprint.
Demanding instant results from an inconsistent and elusive animal is foolish and makes the field of Sasquatch research ripe for disappointment. The Olympic Project continues the research laid out by investigators of decades past, utilizing their knowledge to move further along the road to discovery.